What is up, my loves? Welcome back to another episode of the Fully Alive podcast. My name is Stephanie Ellsperman. I'm your girl, and welcome back if you've been here before. Welcome to the fam. If you are new, this is a space where we dive into all things your soul's purpose and really understanding what it takes to create a life that makes you feel fully alive from the inside out, whether that is impact-driven entrepreneurship, understanding the high performer mindset, spirituality, or clarifying what your purpose actually is. We do it all here, and I'm so excited to have you in for this episode where we are going to be getting into the 2 things that you need to create a high performance morning routine that sets you up to be on purpose and in your power throughout the day, that's based on neuroscience. So of course, you can go online, you can find all the 5 million different lists of things that you need to do first thing in the morning based on someone else's idea of what they do. And I am going to give you examples of how I personally set up my day and what I do first thing in the morning to set myself up to keep that purpose in the forefront of my mind. However, I'm also going to give you the why behind each step, because it's one thing to know what to do. It's another thing to understand why we're actually doing it in a way that relates to your subconscious patterns. Because the reality is, every single time you're doing something new, and if you are on the path to really being in your purpose or getting paid for your purpose, creating a business in this world, you're going to be stretching yourself every single day, which means that we've got to keep that mission and your purpose at the forefront of your mind. And the easiest and simplest way to do that is first thing in the morning. And I totally get how it is so easy, especially as entrepreneurs, when it's up to you to create your income and to build your business and to create this legacy that you see for yourself in the world. It is so easy to have all of that passion, all of that drive you straight into work first thing in the morning. I have definitely done this in the past where you just tumble right into work. You start going and going and going, and then it's 1 p.m. and you're like, I have not even changed my clothes. I haven't brushed my teeth. I haven't eaten. I haven't nourished. Like, what's happening? And things start to fall by the wayside. That's not the worst thing in the world to do a couple of times, maybe once a week, couple of times a week if you have a deadline to hit, right? The world isn't going to end if you don't do your morning routine. Let's be real. However, in the long term, if you're here to really create sustainable success, if you continually neglect your spiritual well-being, your mental well-being, your physical well-being, the things that you really, really need to feel like a solid functioning human in this world, it's not going to be sustainable in the long term. And you all know that we are here for sustainable success in this fully alive world, because I want to see you in your purpose for your entire life rather than just for a quick rise and fall because you get burnt out, right? So how do we do that is by actually setting you up to feel like you have all of your base needs met without feeling super, super rigid, like, oh my God, I have to do these 5 things every single day. Otherwise, I'm not going to be okay. That's not the reality. It's not even true, right? We don't want this to feel like a to-do list where you're like just going through the motions to check it off. I've so been there, done that. And it kind of takes away from the point of a morning routine, which is to really set you up as taking charge of your life. If you're just a slave to another to-do list, you're not actually taking charge. You're just following the steps that you put out for yourself that you thought were going to work versus what you actually need in the moment, okay? And let's be real, you don't have 2 to 3 hours, especially if you're somebody who's wearing a lot of hats in business, or you are two-timing a 9 to 5 and business as well. You don't have that much time to go into like a 3-hour morning routine and all of these different things every single day. Sure, every once in a while it's going to feel really good, but it's just not realistic every single day, because your body is the vessel for your purpose. If your body and also what's connected to that, your spirit, your mind, if those are not fully filled up first, nothing is going to be sustainable long term. Your body has got to be nourished first. This beautiful, incredible thing that you have been blessed with to carry out this purpose in the world, if it is not fully taken care of, ain't nothing gonna stick long term, okay? So how do we do that in a simple, quick, and effective way that is based on neuroscience? Let's get into it. Let's do a little bit of Neuroscience 101. And this is very, very basic knowledge. If you guys enjoy this and you want to dive even deeper into it, there are so many resources. I personally love Dr. Joe Dispenza for really getting into the brain and the subconscious and how it interconnects with our personal power. However, let's do neuroscience light, okay? So when we first wake up in the morning, our brain waves are in a theta state. So this is where they're transitioning out of sleep and you're first starting to open your eyes. You might feel a little bit groggy. This is the time where you're like, where am I and what day is it and what's happening? Like, that time where you are just starting to wake up, this is when your subconscious is the most highly suggestible. It is the greatest time to really start setting intentions and to bring your vision back to the forefront of your mind, to envision the version of yourself that you desire to be for the rest of your day. And it doesn't have to be for 35 minutes. It could be as simple as doing this for 30 seconds before you actually get up so that you are the one who assumes power in your life. You are the one who's in charge rather than falling into your day. Imagine if you were just to grab your phone and you start scrolling and consuming other people's energy first thing in the day. What message is that sending to your subconscious? It's like, oh my gosh, right? What are all of the thoughts that can come in as you're scrolling? It's comparison. It's, oh my gosh, I should be doing something. Oh my gosh, there are things I need to get up. Like there's all of this panic and urgency. You're basically putting a shot of cortisol into your body first thing in the morning, which sets you up for the rest of the day, being in either that anxious state or a state that just isn't fully in your own purpose. So we want to be really, really kind to ourselves during that state where we're moving from delta to theta wave. Then we move from theta into your alpha wave. So this is where your brain is primed to be relaxed yet focused. And it's a really, really good time to solidify your intentions with your morning routine. So whether that's with meditation, with movement, with something else where you can continue being in the energy that you desire to bring in throughout the day. And again, it doesn't have to be long, but it's this middle period where we're starting to wake up. Then eventually our brainwaves go into the beta state. So this is when we are primed to be alert, focused, and ready for work. And so if you've utilized those states where you're in theta and alpha to your advantage, then you're primed and ready to go for the day. There are so many different schools of thought. Some people say morning routine, morning routine. You don't actually need that. However, if you're someone who is doing this work on a deep level and desires to reprogram your subconscious, which is the very thing that also dictates our actions and how we move in the world, then this morning time is truly so crucial for that. Doesn't mean we have to be perfect about it. Doesn't mean that we have to be rigid about it. And so if you're here to blend the energetics and also the strategy of building your business and being in your purpose for life, why not use this time to your advantage? So now let's get into the two things that you actually need to create this high performance morning routine. We're going to start so base level, and that is to create what I call your thrive list. This is where you identify the three things that you need on the most basic level to feel like a functioning human in the world, such that if you did nothing else in your morning routine, at least you as a human being would feel put together, you feel ready, you feel like you did something for yourself first. So for example, my three non-negotiables: get dressed, because look good, feel good. Even if that's putting on workout clothes or putting on something, I have to get dressed. If I start the morning just like feeling like a slob, it just doesn't work for me. That's just me personally. I get dressed, I hydrate, and I nourish my body. So I'm on the whole 30 grams of protein first thing in the morning sort of train. So I typically will make like a protein smoothie to make sure that I have nourishment so that even if I forget like my, what I call my second breakfast, even if I get into work, at least I have that level of nourishment, as well as water plus electrolytes. For me, I chug a whole bunch of water in the mornings so that my brain actually feels alert before I have any caffeine. And the third non-negotiable is getting sunlight on my face. Sometimes that can be as simple as just walking outside and putting my feet in the grass. Other times it's actually taking a walk outside for a longer period of time to get that sunlight in my eyeballs and get my brain alert for the day. Now, why I say your base three non-negotiables for you to feel like a thriving and functioning human is, have you ever gotten straight into work in the morning and you say, oh, I'll eat breakfast later. I'm just going to take care of these first couple of tasks and I'll eat breakfast later. I'll get dressed later. I'm just going to get into it first thing. And then it becomes 1 o'clock. And you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten. I haven't had my water. I'm not dressed. What's going on? Right? It's totally fine to do this a couple of times and be like, oh, whoops. Okay, I'm going to get myself back on track. But if you're doing this consistently over time, you're being driven by your own urgency every single day, day in and day out, you're setting yourself up to feel like you are the last priority. And the reality is you are the magnet for your movement. Everything calibrates around you. So if you are last priority, what message is that sending throughout your movement? Your magnetism becomes weaker and weaker and weaker until you hit that level of burnout where you're like, I can't keep doing this in the same way that I've done it before. So if you do nothing else, what are the three things that you need to feel like, okay, I'm set up as myself as a human being, I'm good. Your three non-negotiables might be different than mine. These are very, very, very basic that you can do on a consistent basis. Then we have step number two, which is identifying your buckets. So, for this larger chunk of time of your morning routine, maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's 45 minutes, maybe you have the luxury of a whole hour, however long you personally have. But for the longer chunk of your morning routine, I like to think in buckets versus a rigid to do list where I have to check off these same 5 things every single day. Because I'm a girl that likes variety. I also know it's not realistic for me to fill every single bucket every single day. So I like to think in terms of the week, which buckets are filled. So for me personally, I have 4 main buckets. The first bucket is my physical bucket. So this is how I'm moving my body, the vitality that I feel, my workouts, things like that. The second is my nature bucket. So how often I've been outside, getting my feet in the grass, going for a walk, and just connecting with something that is not my office or the walls of our house. It's very easy to be inside. The third is spiritual. So, how connected are you feeling to your spiritual practices, to something so much greater than you, to your own personal power, and really doing that deep inner work inside of you? And the fourth, for me, is a bonus, which is relationships. Typically, relationships, it's not always my main priority in the morning, but there are times where, like, I want to spend my morning time with my man or with a friend, and that feels really, really good and nourishing. So that's my bonus fourth category. So, why I personally like to think in buckets is, again, it's not always realistic to get every single bucket checked off every single day. For me to be like, yes, I got my nature in and I got my workout in and I got my spirituality in and I also spent time with my man. Like that might take like 3 hours or like 5 seconds of each thing, right? For me personally, I like to think deeper, slower, long term, where throughout my week, where's my physical bucket at? If I have spent 3 days more sedentary and sitting and not really moving my body in the way that feels really, really good, okay, well, then I'm due for filling up my physical bucket. Or if I have been really, really on it with my physical bucket and hopping straight into work some days, then I'll know there comes a time where I'm like, I am feeling disconnected from my own spiritual practice. Like there is something that is tugging on me. I need to sit down with myself. I need to journal, and that's going to take up the bulk of my time. Or there are other days where I'm like, ooh, my relationship, like it would feel so, so, so good to connect in the morning with my man and we're going to go on a morning date or something like that. Right. And so instead of just intuitively picking, like I could do anything, for me, I like to look at which buckets actually need to be filled up. Now, of course, I do have a little bit more of a methodical way of going through this, so hang with me. And beyond that, to give it a little bit more structure, I typically will start with my most consistent bucket, which is my physical bucket. Because for me, what feels so, so, so good to be a functioning human and to feel like my body is strong and vitality, and also what's in alignment with my personal goal for this year, which is to become in the strongest shape of my life, is to work out 3 to 4 times a week. And so that's something that's just become like clockwork. Every other day, Nolan and I are in the gym or doing something more physically active. And so that's kind of my non negotiable, unless it's the week of my period or I'm traveling or I'm not feeling 100%. Typically, that's the most consistent thing. And I personally do this first thing in the morning because I know myself. I have told myself, oh, I'll like get into a little bit of work and then I'll work out, or I'll just work out at like 4 p.m. at the end of the day. Personally, for me, it doesn't work. Um, I have a really hard time breaking focus once I'm in focus. So I have to work out first thing in the morning so that it's done. I know that I've done something for myself. So let's say I'm working out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and potentially Sunday. Then on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings, I'm looking at where can I fill up my other buckets. So the next bucket that I look at is my spiritual bucket. And where am I feeling at with that? Because for me personally, there is no business without my spiritual connection. It is such a key part of my own personal purpose in this world, and I can feel when I'm straying away from it. And so if I'm like, oof, I'm feeling a little bit more anxious than usual, or I feel like I haven't really had a sit down with myself, or I haven't really been in my meditation practice, and not because I should or I need to get it done, but I'm feeling kind of far from myself and my own personal power or purpose. That's when I'm like, whoo, reel it in, right? And so on those off days, I typically will spend a little bit more time in my own personal spiritual practice. So whether that is, for example, spending 25 minutes journaling, I love to do a 3 page journal dump first thing in the morning to get all of my thoughts out, any patterns that I've been working through, any things I've been noticing, and really get myself back to my own personal power. or whether that is refreshing your vision and bringing it to the forefront of your mind, doing a meditation, reading a book that connects you back, having an embodiment practice. I also personally love, you guys have probably heard me mention this on the podcast before, but I love Michael Singer's weekly talks. I'll link them in the show notes. I feel like I've linked them so many times. But his weekly talks are so phenomenal. He's the author of The Untethered Soul and The Surrender Experiment, and I go back to them time and time again to really reconnect me with my own spiritual practice. So you can fill this with anything that feels really, really good for you. And I typically will do that on the off days where I'm not at the gym and I'm more so walking and moving my body in a different way. The next bucket that I look at is my nature bucket. So if I'm like, whoo, homegirl, we have not seen the ocean in a few days, or we have not been outside for a long period of time, then I'll be like, okay, I've got an off day. I am taking myself, I did this morning, literally. I was like, I am taking myself to the ocean. I need to go see the water. I need to go be outside of my typical environment or my typical like walking path that's around our house. So this could be taking a hike in a new place, just getting yourself outside for a long walk, but something that fills up your nature bucket for yourself. And the bonus bucket, which is relationships. So sometimes if I'm like, oh, it would feel so good to have extra time with my man in the morning, we'll do a morning date, or I'll do a walk and talk with friends, or FaceTime or call a friend that's long distance. Anything like that that will fill up that relationship bucket. So it gets to be fluid and flowy and based on your own intuition and what you feel like you need at that given moment. Because the truth is, you're not going to need the same thing every single day. However, there is still a way to create structure around those intuitive choices. And the last thing that I'll add in is habit stacking can be a really, really fun thing to add in here. So personally, I love to habit stack, and I love to habit stack these different buckets. And so habit stacking is essentially where you take one habit plus another habit and you pair them together. So you're basically doing two things at once, not for the sake of like, I need to get more done in this time, but for the sake of like, ooh, it feels really good to nourish both of these sides of myself right now and I have space for it. So for example, if I'm connecting my spiritual and my physical, sometimes I will literally be the girl at the gym who's listening to like a spiritual podcast, a Michael Singer talk, or I'm listening to like binaural beats in my headphones if I need to use that time as more of a meditative space than I do needing to like listen to my like hype girl sort of music. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe I will stack the spiritual and the nature. So as I'm going for a walk, I have no shame in being the girl who's like typing on my phone, basically journaling as I walk. Because for me, that's when my brain is the clearest. And that's when I feel most connected to my heart and to my soul. And so if I'm in a safe place where there's a safe sidewalk and I'm aware of my surroundings, I will literally like walk and type. I did that this morning when I was walking near the ocean. Or could be that being in nature is part of your spiritual practice and that's what connects you back. Or you listen to something as you're in nature. Or if it's the relationship bucket and the physical bucket, sometimes Nolan and I will go and we'll work out together. A lot of the time we work out together, but sometimes we will more intentionally work out together as if it were a date. Or we'll go on a walk together, or again, like walking and talking with a friend or working out with a friend to stack those two together. So that's what I personally like to do, especially as someone who's got a lot going on. We have two businesses under this roof. We have a storefront, a house, a garden. We don't even have kids, but it still feels like we have a lot going on. And setting ourselves up for the day and utilizing that time where your subconscious is the most suggestible to actually be in charge of your life is beautiful for really kicking off your purpose and your power for the rest of the day. So with that said, I invite you guys to really look at your own morning routine. What are those 3 non-negotiables and what are your own personal buckets that you need filled to feel like a really, really awesome and thriving human in this world so that you can kick off your day with absolute clarity and focus and then get into your work and be on top of the world. Because of course, there are going to be those mornings where you feel inspired and you get straight into your work. Let that come when you need it. And also know that your other bases are covered 90% of the time. And I guarantee your body is going to feel so absolutely nourished and ready to freaking go. Your body is the vessel for your purpose. I love you all. I hope that something has landed with you today. If it has, as always, send me a message on Instagram. If you are not subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and click subscribe. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube so that you get notifications of when this podcast is live. And I cannot wait to see you on the next episode. Mwah!